Have you ever wondered why Japanese homes seem so organized and serene, even with limited space? I discovered their secret, and it is nothing like what you might imagine. Forget those obvious tips about folding clothes or using stackable boxes. What I am about to share with you today completely transformed my home and my life. I am Mariana, I am 52 years old, and until recently, my house was a complete mess. 3 children, a husband, 2 dogs, and a full-time career as an accountant left me constantly overwhelmed, trying to keep everything in order. It felt like a lost battle. Everything changed when I met Yuki, a Japanese lady who moved into the apartment next door. She had just arrived in Brazil, and despite the language barrier, we quickly became friends. One day, she invited me over for tea at her apartment, and I was astonished by what I saw. Her apartment was smaller than mine, yet it appeared much more spacious and welcoming. Nothing was out of place, but it also didn't feel artificial or sterile. It was as if every object had a story to tell and a clear purpose. The most surprising part? She had 3 young children and a husband, just like me. When I asked her about her secret, Yuki smiled and introduced me to the concept of Ma. No, it isn't that well-known technique of folding clothes everyone talks about. Ma is a Japanese philosophical concept that loosely translates as negative space or pause. It is the idea that the empty space between things is just as important as the things themselves. Yuki explained that applying Ma in the home does not simply mean getting rid of everything. It is about creating intentional spaces, visual pauses that allow each object to breathe and tell its own story. She taught me that every item in our home should possess 3 qualities: beauty, function, and meaning. If it did not meet at least 2 of these criteria, it was time to reconsider its presence. I began to apply this concept in my own home, and the results were astonishing. First, I focused on the entrance. Instead of having a pile of shoes stacked up, I created a small entry ritual. I placed a beautiful bench where we could sit to take off our shoes, and a small shelf with clearly defined spaces for each pair. Next to it, a vase with a simple bamboo arrangement. That little Ma at the entrance already made all the difference in our mood upon arriving home. In the kitchen, instead of trying to hide everything in cabinets, Yuki taught me to create functional stations. For example, the coffee station, a beautiful tray with the coffee maker, some special cups, and a jar of coffee beans. This not only made the morning routine easier but also created a pleasant focal point in the kitchen. The concept of Ma extended beyond physical objects. Yuki taught me the importance of creating pauses in our daily routine. She had a small tea ritual every afternoon, even if just for 5 minutes. That moment of pause, she said, was just as important as any practical task. I confess that in the beginning it was difficult. My instinct was to fill every empty space, every moment of silence. But gradually, I began to appreciate the power of Ma. I realized that I didn't need to have an immediate solution for every problem. Sometimes, taking a step back and creating space, be it physical or mental, was the best approach. One of the most significant changes was in the children's room. Instead of trying to control the chaos with more organizers and boxes, we created play zones with intentional empty spaces. This not only made the room more harmonious but also stimulated their creativity. The toys gained more value, as each now had its own stage. The impact of Ma was not limited to the physical organization of the house. I began to notice subtle yet profound changes in the behavior of the entire family. Meals, for example, became more meaningful moments. Inspired by Japanese philosophy, I created a space in the dining room dedicated exclusively to family meals. No TV, no cell phones, no distractions. Just a simple, yet beautiful table with a seat for all of us. At first, I confess there was resistance. The teenagers complained about the lack of cell phones. My husband missed the background news. But we persisted. And something magical began to happen. Conversations blossomed. We discovered things about our children that we never knew before. The silence, which once felt uncomfortable, became a welcome pause between stories and laughter. Yuki taught me that Ma also applies to time. She introduced me to the concept of Ichigo Ichi, which means one time, one encounter. It is the idea that every moment is unique and unrepeatable, so we must live it fully. I began to apply this in the small moments of the day. When I was washing the dishes, for example, instead of rushing to the next task, I tried to be completely present. I felt the warm water, the scent of the soap, the shine of the clean dishes. This simple practice transformed everyday chores into moments of mindfulness. One of the most valuable lessons I learned from Yuki was about the beauty of imperfection. In Japan, there is a concept called wabi-sabi, which celebrates the beauty of imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete things. This was revolutionary for me, an inveterate perfectionist. I began to see beauty in the small imperfections of my home and my life. For instance, there was an old table in the living room that I had always wanted to replace because it had some scratches. Yuki taught me to see those scratches as part of the table's story, marks of a well-lived life. Instead of hiding them, we accentuated these imperfections with a Japanese technique called kintsugi, where cracks are repaired with gold. The table became a conversation piece, reminding us daily that our flaws can be our greatest beauty. Another practice that Yuki taught me and that transformed our home was the concept of shakiai, or borrowed scenery. It is the idea of incorporating the outdoor view as part of the interior design. We rearranged the furniture to better take advantage of the windows, creating natural frames for the trees in the backyard or the sky. This not only made the spaces appear visually larger, but also connected us more with nature and the changing seasons. Applying Ma in our home had an unexpected effect on my professional life as well. As an accountant, I always took work home, scattering papers and laptops everywhere. Yuki helped me create a dedicated workspace, separated from the family living area. It was a small, well-planned corner with only the essentials. Surprisingly, my productivity increased. The clean and well-defined space helped focus my mind, and I could finish my work more quickly, leaving more time for the family. One of the most interesting practices Yuki taught me was Osoni, the daily offering. She kept a small altar at home, where she placed a fresh flower or a piece of fruit every day. It wasn't something religious, she explained, but a way to express gratitude and connect with the present moment. I adapted this idea by creating a gratitude corner in our living room. Each family member could put something there, a photo, a found object, anything that represented something they were grateful for that day. It became a focal point of positivity in our home. The impact of Ma even extended to how we handled our household finances. Yuki introduced me to the concept of motonai, which expresses a sense of regret over waste. This made us rethink our consumption habits. Instead of buying on impulse, we began to carefully consider each purchase. Do we really need this? Will it bring beauty, function, or meaning to our lives? This shift in mindset not only organized our home but also our budget. One of the deepest transformations I experienced was in my relationship with time. Yuki taught me about the Japanese concept of ma no aware, which roughly translates as the poignant beauty of ephemerality. It is the idea of appreciating the transient beauty of things. This completely changed my perspective on organizing both my home and my life. Instead of constantly fighting against disorder, I began to see the natural cycles of order and chaos as part of life. For example, the dining table, which I used to obsessively keep tidy, now became a fluid space. During the day, it could serve as a workspace for the children to do their homework. In the evening, it transformed into a space for family games. And during meals, it reverted to being our dining table. This flexibility brought a new dynamic to our home. Yuki also introduced me to the concept of ikigai, which is basically a person's reason for being. She challenged me to think about the ikigai of every room in the house. What is the purpose of this space? How does it contribute to our happiness and well-being? This led to some surprising changes. For instance, we transformed our rarely used guest room into a dream room. Each family member had a corner in that room to pursue their hobbies and passions. For me, it was a small painting studio. For my husband, a space for his vinyl record collection. The children had areas for their creative projects. This room became the creative heart of our home, a place where dreams were nurtured and pursued. A practice we adopted that had a surprising impact was Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing. Yuki explained that in Japan, people regularly take walks in nature as a way to reduce stress and improve well-being. We didn't have a forest nearby, but we began taking regular walks in the local park. This not only connected us more with nature, but also inspired us to bring more natural elements indoors. We started cultivating small plants in every room, creating mini indoor gardens. They weren't just decorative, each plant had a purpose. Aromatic herbs in the kitchen, air-purifying plants in the bedrooms, and a small bonsai in the living room as a meditation focal point. These plants became part of our daily routine, reminding us to care not only for our environment but also for ourselves. The concept of kodawari, which refers to the relentless pursuit of perfection in a specific craft, also found its place in our home. Each family member chose a skill to refine. My eldest son decided to dedicate himself to the art of origami, creating increasingly complex paper sculptures that decorated our spaces. My middle daughter fell in love with Japanese calligraphy, and her works soon adorned our walls. I myself rediscovered my passion for ceramics, creating unique pieces for our home. One of the most significant changes was in our morning routine. Inspired by the Japanese concept of Aser Ichi, or morning market, we established a new tradition. Every Saturday, we would wake up early and head together to the local market. We would choose fresh ingredients for the week, talk with local producers, and return home to prepare an elaborate breakfast together. This ritual not only improved our diet, but also strengthened our family bonds. The application of Ma even extended to how we dealt with technology at home. Yuki introduced me to the idea of digital minimalism. We created technology-free zones in the house, such as the dining table and the bedrooms. We set specific times for the use of electronic devices. Surprisingly, this not only reduced stress and improved our communication, but also made us appreciate technology more when we did use it. A practice we adopted that had a profound impact was osoji, or year-end cleaning. In Japan, it is common to do a deep cleaning of the house at the end of the year to welcome the new year with a clean and renewed space. We adapted this to our reality by doing a seasonal cleaning every 3 months. It wasn't just a physical cleaning, but also an opportunity to reassess our possessions and our goals as a family. The concept of omotenashi, which refers to Japanese hospitality, transformed the way we welcomed guests into our home. Instead of stressing over having everything perfect, we learned to create a welcoming atmosphere with simple yet meaningful gestures. We began always keeping a set of special teacups for guests, a small floral arrangement at the entrance, and extra comfortable cushions for visitors. These little touches made people feel truly welcome, without the need for elaborate preparations. A practice I adopted that revolutionized my relationship with household chores was kaizen, or continuous improvement. Instead of trying to make big changes all at once, I started making small adjustments daily. For example, every day I would choose one drawer or shelf to organize. In 1 week, the entire kitchen was transformed without me feeling the weight of a massive reorganization. The concept of mono no aware, the awareness of the impermanence of things, made me rethink my relationship with objects. I began to appreciate more the things we had, knowing that nothing lasts forever. This was reflected in how we cared for our possessions. We started repairing broken items instead of replacing them, giving them new life and value. A significant change was the creation of an engawa in our home. In Japan, the engawa is a corridor or veranda that serves as a transitional space between the interior and the exterior. We couldn't build a physical engawa, but we created a similar space on our balcony. We placed some plants, a comfortable bench, and a few cushions. This space became our refuge, a place to relax, read, or simply enjoy the view. It was as if we had gained a new room in the house. The philosophy of motonai, avoiding waste, led us to adopt more sustainable practices at home. We began composting food scraps, reusing rainwater for the plants, and seeking alternatives to disposable products. These changes not only reduced our environmental impact, but also made us feel more connected to the natural cycle of things. The concept of shojin, which refers to dedication and constant effort, found its place in our daily routine. We established small rituals throughout the day that helped us maintain focus and intention. For example, before starting any task, we would take a 30-second pause to breathe deeply and concentrate. This simple practice significantly improved our productivity and reduced stress. One of the most valuable lessons I learned from Yuki was about kokoro, which can be translated as heart or mind. She taught me that true organization begins from the inside out. I started practicing meditation daily, even if just for 5 minutes. This practice helped clear my mind and make more conscious decisions about what truly mattered in our home and our lives. The concept of wa, or harmony, became central in our approach to resolving family conflicts. Instead of shouting or blaming, we began holding regular family meetings where everyone could express their feelings and needs respectfully. We created a decorated talking stick that was passed around to ensure everyone had the chance to be heard. This practice greatly improved our communication and reduced tensions. Inspired by ikebana, the Japanese art of floral arrangement, I began creating small compositions with natural elements throughout the house. They weren't elaborate arrangements, but rather simple compositions that highlighted the natural beauty of a single flower or branch. These little touches brought a sense of freshness and connection with nature to every room. The Japanese idea of yutori, which refers to living with space or room to breathe, made us rethink our schedules. We realized that we were always rushing from one activity to another, with no time to process or simply be. We began intentionally leaving empty spaces in our calendars, times to do nothing. Surprisingly, these moments of non-doing became some of the most productive and rejuvenating.